I want to make a quick point that's going to sound weird, but will make sense about halfway through the video. Politicians and corporations are functionally identical, and they need to be fought in functionally identical ways. Stay with me. Also, a little disclaimer right up here at the front. The last two videos I made, the one about stocks and the one about the legitimacy of democracy, those are mandatory viewing for this. All of the points I'm going to make are built off of both of those ideas. You can go and watch them. They're not very long. This one isn't going to be very long either. I've decided to try and be more succinct. So, crazy idea. Corporations are only accountable to their shareholders. Governments have been frequently rendered toothless trying to stop them. Popular petitions don't end up doing anything. The only people that can affect a corporation are the people who own stock in it. And the people who own stock in corporations are frequently only happy when they make more money. Ultimately, petitioning corporations to change their behavior, whether it's a government petition or just a people's petition, is useless. Because corporations aren't there to serve the people, they're there to serve the stockholder class. Now, it may just be my perspective as a person with the IQ of a gorilla, but the solution to this seems really simple. You find the people who own shares in a company, and you hold them to account for the things that a corporation does. If you pester these people enough, either they're going to pester the corporation for those same things that you're complaining about, or they're going to sell their shares in that stock. Either outcome is beneficial to people trying to effect change, right? I would hope I don't have to explain where I'm going with this. And yet here we are. For the people in the cheap seats, crazy idea, politicians are literally only accountable to their donors. Government institutions are toothless to stop their misbehavior, and public petitions have frequently gone nowhere. The only thing that affects politicians' behavior is how happy their donors are, and so on and so forth, but swap politicians for corporations. This is absolutely something we can fix. Publicly traded companies trade publicly. We can just grab a list of names. With politicians, it's a bit harder. Some states, including Illinois, have sunshine laws that require public donors to be publicly known. Granted, that's not enough, but we also know major organizations are funding things. Organizations like the American Legislative Exchange Council. We can find those people and pester them. The shareholder class, as I've been describing them in these last few videos, they have their hands on the levers of power. And as I hope that I've demonstrated, they're using that control over our society to make themselves richer and make us poorer. And that's making us suffer. I don't like that. I'm sure you don't like that. But we can fix this. We know where the people in the shareholding class live, and we know where they work. So we make a deal with them. Either they straighten course and go in a direction that benefits everyone, or we seize the levers of power from those people. That's what we have to do. So if all of that seemed really short, it's because I don't like telling people to do direct actions without having a direct action that they can go and do. And it just so happens I have three direct actions that you can do right now. So I know that a lot of my, let's say audience, might not like Matpat very much. And maybe rightly so. But this is something that should be easy. Matpat has been talking on YouTube over the past couple of weeks about how him and some other YouTube channels, including Smosh, I think, lost something like $7 million. Well, no, they didn't lose it. It was stolen from them by their multi-channel network. Except to say it was stolen isn't quite accurate either. It is, last I heard, in the possession of a bank called Ally Bank, who seized all of the multi-channel network's revenues in order to pay back a loan that they owed. Now, this is really simple. What you do is you call the major investors into Ally Bank, and you tell them the situation, maybe link them the videos, tell them that the money that Ally Bank currently has does not belong to the multi-channel network. It belongs to the people on YouTube. It's their income. And if I can make a brief aside here, when I say that public stocks are traded publicly, this is what I'm talking about. You can Google any name and stock price, and it'll come up. And the first link will almost always be this, which leads to this. You just have to Google it. It's literally the only thing that Yahoo is still any good for. These two groups own almost 20% of the company! So there's a thread by Dan Olson about how Patreon is about to be totally consumed by its investors, because to these investors, having a stable product that pumps out a great deal of money isn't good enough. They need all the money all the time. So there are these two groups that have invested in Patreon in the past. Thrive Capital and Index Ventures are demanding more money from Patreon. The problem is that these investors see capitalism as being a zero-sum game. It's not enough money unless you're making literally all the money all the time. These investors are like predators, and now they're preying on a service that is used almost exclusively by working-class people to earn a living. And that should upset you a great deal. So I started a change.org petition. Yes, I know. But the point of the petition isn't to tell anyone anything, not exactly. It's to tell the people who are responsible, right now, for what's happening to Patreon, that we know who they are, and we know where they work. And we're going to hold them accountable if Patreon decides to fuck up. And more importantly, we're going to hold them accountable by leaving the platform and going somewhere else. Which means that they're not going to get their money back. And if you don't think a change.org petition is going to work, I mean, I don't either. But you can do all the other things that I said in the last thing. You can find out who these people are, although that's been proven to be difficult for me. You can petition them directly. You can send them voicemails, you can send them emails, you can send them singing telegrams. But I've kind of gone out of my way to make this as easy as possible for anyone who wants to help. Did you see this video where Dianne Feinstein yells at a bunch of children because she doesn't want to support the Green New Deal? That's a goof, if I ever saw one. I know that there are some people, I'm active in the Earthstrike servers, the international server and the US server, and I know that there are people who are skeptical of creating change through political means, for political levers, and you know what, in fairness, I'm skeptical of that too. I've just made 3 videos about how people like me do not control the levers of power in this country anymore. But that doesn't mean that we can't have any effect, and that certainly doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to have as much of an effect as we can on the levers of power. Having people who would support initiatives that we would bring forward would be a boon to fixing the stuff. What stuff? All the stuff. Everything's broken. I mentioned in my last video that there are places that have what are colloquially called sunshine laws that show where people in the government get their money from. The one that I'll be pulling most of the information that I use with Senator Feinstein is OpenSecrets.org, which is a subsidiary of the Center for Responsive Politics. They seem to be good people. There are other groups, but they're the ones I'm using right now. This is something you can do uniquely with elected officials. You can find where they're getting their money, and you can demand that those groups or those people make a statement about certain policies that are being endorsed by those elected officials. In this case, you would call PG&E Corp., the University of California, Edison International, Emily's List, Walt Disney Company, General Dynamics, so on and so forth, and you would ask them, for example, why they are supporting someone, Senator Feinstein in this case, who doesn't believe that we can reasonably expect climate change to be fixed in the next 10 years. And if they agree with that policy. Additionally, you can call the political action committees that help get Senator Feinstein in office, and you can ask them, hey, do you really think it's appropriate to have an elected official in office who's this intimidated by children? One of the things that makes Senator Feinstein so valuable to the DNC is that she is very, very good at fundraising. So if we can make it even a little bit harder for her to do that, I'm pretty sure she'll fold. She won't fold hard, she'll frame it as a compromise, and quite frankly, I don't care how she frames it, as long as she agrees to support something like the Green Deal, or some kind of action against climate change. And as long as she understands that being that hostile to people who are going to be able to vote in between 2 and 6 years is going to lose her votes. Ultimately, the problem that Senator Feinstein demonstrated is that she would rather tell off a group of school children that are going to be affected by actual real policies that are in place right now than even feign to threaten major donors to the Democratic Party, which goes back to everything that I've said. And speaking of elections, I intended to have next month be me talking about different fascist debate tactics and how you can counter them and what those things that they're saying actually kind of mean in the scheme of things, but that would be on the curve. And I've been doing good at being on the curve, but I want to get ahead of the curve. So I think next month is going to be about the political cycle. Starting with my predictions, my very poor predictions about the 2020 election. So yeah, until we get there, take care of yourselves, alright?